Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to live your best life with anxiety and OCD? Well, we got an amazing show for you. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris. And as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. If you haven't joined us on YouTube, go do that. Hit the subscription button so you know when we go live, and hit the alert button, actually, so you know when we go live every single dang time. And then on Facebook, there's a Tribe of Giants, and it's a beautiful group where people can go and support each other. And we got a pretty decent amount of people. Bleh. You ever have those mornings where you're just like,
Yeah,
your mouth does not want to work?
it's like
It's
even
all
coffee.
in there. Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
there. It's just, "Doing." I see
or you
calling
drink
in my
too
head.
much caffeine and you
"Ding."
can't speak
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
right?
I think that's it. This is all caffeine and a little bit of cream.
Cream with a little bit of coffee.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got it. So anyway, come join us on Facebook. It's a great place, and we've got our SG groups going. If you want to join one of those Sum Gigante groups for group coaching, we would love to have you. And you can find more information about that on our website. And if you want to see tons of Giants on Facebook, this is one of them that will be there. She's almost on every single show. So we're grateful for all of our support online as well. So we love you all, Giants. Nick, do you have any other announcements this morning?
no. I think every time we say go join on YouTube, they do the opposite. They go to some other like
They,
Vimeo or
they
something.
leave.
Yeah. So maybe we should say go join us on Vimeo and they'll come over to YouTube. That'll be
Yeah,
a
let's
better
do that.
place. No, I don't have any other announcements. Actually, I do.
Oh,
December 9th and 10th, we're doing a live event here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
oh yes,
And
that.
so check for the details in the Tribe of Giants.
You can fly in for a day and grab a bunch of donuts and hang out, right?
Hey.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
Yes, it does.
Well, good. I'll introduce our guest today. So we've got, tell me if I'm saying this right, Madina Alam.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. She's a licensed mental health counselor and a certified yoga instructor. That's more than I am. I can't stretch.
I've been certified in a few
Yeah.
things, but I don't know if it helps.
I can get right above my knees.
Yeah.
There. That's about as far as I stretch. She specializes in treating OCD and anxiety and is also a director of operations at NOCD, where she helps manage and oversee therapists who are treating OCD. So NOCD is a company dedicated to treating individuals with OCD using exposure response prevention, ERP, a research-backed type of treatment. She's also a lover of all things fitness and donuts and will be well-being, and is a strong advocate for learning to live with discomfort. And I've got a little bit of a raspy voice, but welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think I sound like Barry White, but
Yeah.
Do you right now?
I don't.
You guys are funny. We were all chatting before, and they are already making me laugh. So this is going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. This is a great topic because I struggled with anxiety for about 10 years straight. And in 2017 was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And it was moderate. You know, it wasn't severe where I was broken down, but it was enough to impact my life. And then OCD is kind of a form of anxiety. Is that right?
Yep. It would be considered an anxiety disorder.
Okay. And
Then
we
in
may or may not
2022,
talk
he was
about that.
self-diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh,
And then I read a book and I'm like, oh yeah, I have that. And then I pretend because I read the book, right?
that was all in grad school for me. Every time we went over to
Yeah.
school, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I have that.
Yeah. Oh, I have everything. Yeah. A hypochondriac of mental illness. We'll just say that. Something along those lines. But we really enjoy going into your journey. So we want to dive into, we go through what are called the 12 journeys, where we dive into your non-conscious states or your unconscious states, waking up to that, going through things like grief and depression and anxiety, and then how you create acceptance around those and some tools that you use. And then we look at growth, so that's all internal work. And then we look at the external stuff. And so if we go back in time to your journey, was there a space or a place in your life where you were unconscious? Maybe you thought you were something that maybe pushed you toward looking at the field you're in?
Yeah, I think I first remember really getting interested in kind of these facets when I was in my undergrad. That's when I first was introduced to yoga, and I started doing yoga, and I had always loved working out. And I really loved the concept of just like, how do you respond when things get literally physically uncomfortable, and like how much of a mental discomfort that can also yield. And so that relationship that I had with myself and working out was really fascinating to me. So after I had graduated undergrad, I actually took a year off and I just taught yoga for a whole entire year, which was really cool. And if I could live off love and peace, I would totally do that now. But it had then
love and peace and donuts should be a shirt, right?
Isn't that interesting? Like, I don't know, like I haven't done, maybe I need to do more yoga. But every time I'm in an uncomfortable position, all I can think about is this is a very uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
I don't have that insight that came to you, like this deep philosophy of life. And how could I, that was amazing what you just said. But like every yogi that I know, like, or that I've read about, goes on this, like, they're like a yogi for life type of thing, right? There's no like anti-yogis out there.
Yeah. It's like, it's such a microcosm of the real world. Like when you're, whether it be on your mat or any sort of workout that you do, and it doesn't have to be like anything crazy. You don't have to be an amazing working out person or however you want to word it. It's just a good life lesson on, like, again, how do you respond when things get difficult? And so that's when I decided to go back to grad school, and I got my degree in mental health. And I don't know how much of you guys, how deep do you guys want me to go? Because
go deep. Yeah. And I feel like we're on the Truman Show. It's like good morning, good afternoon, good evening, like all the comments.
We're all over the world.
In the
so
UK. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's cool to see everyone chiming in. But I was practicing for a couple of years just kind of as a generalist, like treating all different sorts of disorders. And then my current company, OCD, had actually recruited me. And when I had heard the type of therapy that they use, which is a very behavioral approach, I was really sold. So basically the whole crux of what we teach individuals with OCD or anxiety disorders is how to live with uncertainty and discomfort versus trying to get rid of it. I'm a firm believer that so much of our problems are created by trying to get rid of our problems versus recognizing that that's part of what it means to be human.
See, I want to go back and fix now with my OCD that it's not NOCD, it's no CD.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Everyone, I did it when I first was hired.
Yeah. So I like that, no CD.
Yeah.
But it's not about getting rid of it, right? It's learning to work with it. And so what you said is we often keep stuff going by trying to prevent it.
Yeah.
Like trying to avoid it. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, totally. Like even, and thank you for sharing about your anxiety journey, as we are all anxious from time to time. And I think we can over pathologize that normal human emotion. And yes, in this context, I'll use the word normal because we all experience it. But oftentimes what I'll see people do is they'll feel anxious, and then they're trying to figure out why they feel anxious, why it's there, how to make it go away. How do I make it short? And like, what does it mean? And then now it is becoming pathological because you're sitting there ruminating and stalling your entire life, trying to figure out why you feel an emotion that is a normal, again, part of being human, versus like, oh, that's here. And like, I don't love it, but like, I can let it be there.
Okay. So when people say stuck, right? I feel stuck or I feel stalled out. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, maybe you can help me with this one, is they're just stuck fighting what is. Like, instead of embracing and loving what is, they're fighting it, they're resisting it, and then it persists. And so that's what feels like stuck, because you're trying to get rid of it and it's not going away. And it's like, it's not meant to go away. Mm-hmm. Does that bring up a thought, or is there a better way to say that?
Yeah. I mean, you said it beautifully, but I think it reminds me of this.
You said it all right, Nick. She says it beautifully.
I'm an orator.
Actually, yours sounds terrible compared to hers.
Yeah. So back on topic here.
You guys are funny. It reminds me of this quote by Pema Chodron. She's a Buddhist monk, but I'm not going to quote it exactly right, but she says, nothing goes away until it's taught you what you need to know.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's the same with emotion and even thoughts that we don't like having, or sensations, physical sensations. Anxiety is a very physical disorder. And when people have physical sensations, they're misinterpreting them or trying to get them to go away versus, again, welcoming it in and embracing it.
Yeah. So the sensation, when you learn the lesson, it'll kind of dissipate or dilute a little bit, be diluted, diluted. How about that? It's a better word rather than diluted. That's a little, sometimes I'm delusional. So the idea there that when you face it and you allow it, a lot of times it just dissipates on its own. It dissolves on its own. And Barry McDonough is one of my favorites. Lisa Feldman Barrett's another one that I like. And she talks about anxiety being one of those things where we feel like we're not measuring up to the ideals of others. And then we have a follow-up to that, is that the ideals that we think others have is what we're judging ourselves off of. So it's really all in here anyway. Like we think we know what they're thinking, and then we're judging ourselves for what we think they're thinking, and we're not living up to what we think they're thinking. And so it creates anxiety. And so I want to create a distinction between anxiety and fear. Fear would be in response to an event in your world, right? A tiger in the room. Anxiety is a thought about something that could happen, but is it more in relation to people when it comes to anxiety, or is anxiety also tied to events and things? Does that make sense?
Sort of. I've never heard that distinction between fear and anxiety, but I think it's really fascinating the way you lay it out. I think anxiety can be literally about anything. Typically, you'll see anxiety is about the things that are most important to a person, which I always like to point out. We think if we're worried about something, that means the likelihood of it is higher. But really, you can tell what a person values if you ask them, what are your top 3 fears? It's probably their values. It's the things that are really important to them. So it's not bad that we worry about things. But again, when we have an anxiety disorder, we misconstrue it as, oh my God, I'm worried that this person thinks I'm mean because maybe I am being mean. And it's like, no, it's because you really care about how you make other people feel.
Okay, so let's play with. I love this. So we're way off track. So
I know.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great.
An anxiety therapist taking us off track. What?
Yeah. What? Yeah, we want to spin up those thoughts and turn them around. So, but the idea there is that your values, what your big 3 fears, right, are your values, and so you value connection, like what you just shared there. You value connection. It might be you value security and safety. It might be something else. But anxiety, the way you're describing it here, is more around the attachment to the thing, is losing the connection to the thing you're attached to. And that would be things as well, because we have visions and ideals that we create. And then when we don't measure up to those, Lisa Feldman Barrett calls depression our own not measuring up. Mm-hmm. So when we think we're not measuring up to our own ideals, we feel depression. When we feel like we're not measuring up to the ideals of others, it's anxiety. But what you're tying it to is the attachment to anything, right? Could create that anxiety, the fear of loss of that attachment. Does that make sense? Or is there, maybe there's a way to clarify that? I like to just throw things out as though they're theories, but they're.
I just wanted to re-say it because it sounds better when it comes out of her mouth.
Oh.
Wait,
what part do you want me to re-say?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and remove him from that.
Oh.
All right, now it's just back to you and me. Okay, so let's.
He forgets that. What if both of us accidentally remove each of us at the same time?
It should be.
And then it would just be me by myself.
Right.
Probably be better show.
No, I think what you're saying is like, okay, so we have attachments to these fears because they're the things that are really important to us. And I think, and I hope this isn't taking us even more off topic, but
let's do it.
The reason that those things are even more of an anxiety is because the more we perseverate on something or think a lot about something, the stronger your fear is around that thing. So anxiety is the reason behavior approaches are really helpful for anxiety disorders, or even just having anxiety, is because the place in the brain that fear lives in literally cannot understand language. So when you try to talk yourself out of being scared, it does not work. You have to physically.
But that's what we try to do, right? Like that's what we're always like. You can do this.
Oh, come on.
Like you try to give yourself
about this.
Talking it, you can't.
No, but this is interesting because it's a behavioral thing, is what you're saying. So,
and that. Oh, sorry.
No, go into the brain. Like I'm gonna nerd out here. Like teach us about that part of the brain that doesn't understand words. Like, yeah.
Well, I think, and this is a big reason why our company even exists. There's a huge misconception around OCD. You guys probably hear the term thrown around all the time. It's actually very disrespectful, right? Oh, you're so OCD, or I'm so OCD, and it's very denigrating to the people who actually have OCD. And it's the part of what's so misunderstood about it is how it's treated. So a lot of therapy is actually counterproductive for OCD and anxiety disorders, because when you go see a therapist for traditional talk therapy, the therapist is sitting there with you trying to talk you out of being scared and trying to get you to figure out things, right? With the most like cliche therapist line, why do you think you feel that way, right? And it's like, if someone has an anxiety disorder, I'm not going to sit here with you for 60 minutes and help you ruminate. I'm actually going to stop you from ruminating, and I'm going to get you up and doing the thing.
I like that.
Did you just use the word ruminate? Because when you did, Nick was like,
well, she also said perseverate, right? Like, didn't you? Something like that. Yeah, that's a great word. I'm gonna.
Nick loves words.
Well, so Hugh asked, is anxiety a learned trait or innate? And to me, I think it's a natural thing that we do. Is we have anxiety, we have fear. Mm-hmm. These are emotions, human emotions, right? So they're ingrained. But what we learn in our environment is how to interact with those. Or don't learn it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I want to tie this into grief, right? Because if we don't get attached to something, we don't feel grief over its loss. I mean, there are people dying every day, and that we don't lose our minds and cry and feel sad about people that are dying, even though people are dying every day. Mm-hmm. But somebody is connected to that person. People lose jobs every day, but we're not crying or feeling sad over their loss of their job. And so it takes our own attachment to a thing for us to have some kind of an emotional connection to it. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to anxieties and OCD is going a level further. I mean, that's a disorder where it's taken over, right? Is that correct? So it's not just a healthy level of anxiety. It's like the behaviors have taken over your life where you're unable to perform or have a fairly, I hate to use the word normal life because that's so relative.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important thing to point out, right? At the end of the day, generalized anxiety disorder can also be this way too. But yes, you'll see with OCD where people are literally debilitated. They can't leave their home, or they can't have relationships or keep a job.
Can you talk about I think the distinction is important versus maybe just what the average person says, oh, you have OCD. Can you give us like some context on, okay, this is truly OCD. This is what it's about, so that more people that can understand it. Can you go through that just real quick?
Of course. Yeah. So OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. So a person will have what we call obsessions. So these are intrusive or otherwise known as unwanted thoughts that will come into a person's mind. So the good thing here, or the big thing to remember here, is that every single person walking this planet has intrusive thoughts. An example is like, I could be driving over a bridge and I think, what if I just were to drive my car over the bridge? So the person with OCD will have the intrusive thought, and they'll feel so much fear and distress around that thought and be scared that it's true or that it could happen. And so they do what we call compulsions, which can be physical or mental behaviors that are done to either make them feel like they're preventing that fear from happening, or to reduce the distress they have in that moment. And so because those behaviors become a cyclical cycle and strengthen the fear, kind of how we were talking about earlier, the fear part is listening to the behavior. So the more the person does the compulsion, the stronger their fear is. And then the more compulsions they do. Yeah. And
that's amazing. The exact thing that they're trying to have go away by doing something about it actually gets stronger by doing the thing.
Okay,
Yes.
I want to dive into that part a little bit, because you're talking about the glial cells that support that behavior. Because when a neuron fires, those oligodendrocytes come in, the astrocytes come in, and they support that behavior. So it's not a verbal thing, it's a behavior thing. So the brain's just locking in what it is they repeatedly do, just like all of us. We all have automated behaviors. Might not be OCD, might not be distressing to our life, but we have things that kind of put us into an unconscious state, an automated state, where we're kind of reacting to life.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you're seeing it, or is there another? I'll keep asking that, because if we say something that's off topic or, like out of line, like I'd want to be corrected on it. I want to know.
No, I mean, when you were naming the structures in the brain, I was like, have you guys seen that meme where it's like the math problem and everything's like blurry in the background?
Yeah. Did you just zone out? Yeah, you're like, oh no.
If you see me doing that, that's what's going on in my brain.
Yeah.
No,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, I followed for the most part. Yeah, I think that's, again, it's a huge misunderstanding we have about the mental health field. Like, I think even with depression, for me, the number one treatment I would use for depression is behavior activation, which isn't, I'm not going to sit here for 60 minutes and talk to you about why you think you're depressed and like what your relationship with your parents was like. I'm going to get you up and let's wash one dish. And then I want us to step outside on your porch and get some sunlight.
Yeah. Okay. So can I spin off on depression a little bit? We'll pull it back, because we're going grief, depression, anxiety. They're all tied together, right?
Yeah.
So the attachment is the thing is again, if you weren't attached to an ideal, or you're not attached to a person or thing, then you wouldn't experience sadness. You wouldn't experience depression. You wouldn't experience anxiety. It would be pretty bland, right? Mm-hmm. We're also not meant to be happy all the time. That's another issue, right? We don't chase that away. But the idea of depression is like when you feel depression, we teach this in our course, is that it causes you to resign from what's happening. It causes you to ruminate and reflect on it. People who are depressed see reality exactly as it is. They're not in their delusion. But the problem is they stay there. So as a therapist, if you go into rumination, you're just keeping them stuck in rumination, right? So one of the powers of depression is resilience. It's the ability to re-engage and have a reverence for what happened, a respect for it, but then to re-engage in a new way. And so what you're teaching here is that getting into action, even if it's one dish, is a form of re-engagement. That's what helped me with anxiety right there, is getting into action and re-engaging with life, right?
Yeah. Is there a healthy level of anxiety or depression? I like this question.
I like this better for Madina. So this is, I don't know why my name's on the front of there, Julie. No, I'll answer too.
I've said it like 2 or 3 times now. I think it is better when it comes out of her mouth.
I think this is a really good question, because everything in the DSM, which is the book we use to diagnose any sort of disorder, there is a continuum, and everyone on this planet is on the continuum somewhere. It is not considered clinical until it is impairing your day-to-day functioning. And so again, that's where I think sometimes a healthy level of anxiety then turns pathological, because you've sat there and stalled your whole life to try to figure out why you feel anxiety and how to get rid of it and how come this is here, versus kind of what you're talking about is like normalizing it for yourself.
The DSM, right? So it's a way for those that are communicating to understand what we mean when we say a thing, right? So when therapists and psychologists are communicating, they know that a person has these traits, and another therapist are talking, they can say, okay, we understand that this could mean that, but it's not a label. People use it as a labeling. It's like, oh, you have OCD because of this. I had a therapist tell me, he said, traits don't merit a diagnosis. Everybody has traits for something, like narcissism. They have traits for that. OCD, they have traits for anxiety. They have traits for this, but it doesn't merit a diagnosis. It's like you say, when it gets to the point that it's interrupting your life and interfering with your ability to even find some joy in life, then it becomes a challenge, right?
Totally.
And so I know in psychology, we have operational definitions of things. And so that kind of, to me, is what we mean when we say somebody has OCD. There's an operational definition of what that means when we say that word or use that phrase, right? You can disagree.
No, yeah, no, I was actually like, oh, dang, I didn't know he would know this. Yeah, it's really just for communication between providers. Like, instead of me saying this person has this, and this, I'm like, this person has generalized anxiety disorder. And now we can assume the symptoms.
Right. And then another provider might come in and say, well, these meds might work for that, or this type of therapy might work for that. But I love what you offer here is the idea that, I don't know, there's an embracing of it, right? Like there's an embracing of what is, but there's also that re-engagement component. Barry McDonough in his work, Dare, I don't know if you've read that book, Dare. He's not a therapist. He's not a professional. He just diagnosed himself and solved his own anxiety, resolved it. But a lot of it was being able to re-engage with life. That's what the R means, is to re-engage. And so he used to run from it. And that's what I used to do. I used to run from it. I used to avoid it, used to numb out to it. And that's where addictions come in, is you just try to numb out your emotions as though that's going to stop them, and they're not going away ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, and I can't remember like where I heard or read this, but a lot of times we're waiting to feel motivated to take action.
Yeah.
And we have it so backwards. We have to take action and then we'll feel motivated. Like the simplest example is going to the gym. I've been going to the gym literally for years and years and years. I don't typically feel motivated before. I usually after, right? And I think it's the same way with anxiety, with depression, is we're waiting for a certain state of mind before we take action. Like I'll see it all the time with my college, clients. It's like, oh, I'm waiting to feel motivated to do my homework, or waiting for the perfect time to do it. And I'm like, stop. Like, I need you to stop talking right now, and I actually need you to go get your homework.
Who, me?
No.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I got homework.
We can practice, right? Or I do that in session. Like, you're talking about doing your laundry and all these. I'm like, can you just stop and let's go get your laundry and let's do it right now?
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I think exposure therapy gets a bad rap because it sounds scary, which it is. But like, my goal as a therapist is not to like shy you away from anything that's scary. My goal is to empower you that you can handle uncomfortable things and that you don't need to be shied away from it. So it's like running towards the discomfort and the fear.
I love that. Yeah. Running toward it, not away from it.
Yeah.
And in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, I talk about discipline over desire, right? So you start with discipline, and you start with your ritual and routine.
Yeah.
And if you have a routine that's automated, that is uncomfortable, then you want to start into the routine, even if your thoughts are going. I mean, we have 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and most of those are negative for our protection. And I tell people, look, if you're trying to tackle this from your thoughts, it's like cutting down a tree one leaf at a time. It's like impossible.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just learning to love your thoughts and let them flow, love your emotions, let them flow. And while they're there, it's like, let them get on the bus and let's go get something done. Right. Let's say, somebody is unconscious. I mean, is there a way to wake people up to their unconsciousness? So if somebody is automated and they don't even know, they're just in their automation, somebody, let's say with OCD or anxiety, and they're just stuck in a loop, but they don't know they're stuck in a loop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is there a way to wake them up to that, to create awareness?
This is an interesting question, because I think this is the journey of a therapist too, because as a therapist, you want to be able to wake people up and help them, because that's ultimately our job. But I think something I've really learned, and probably the hard way, is that unfortunately you have to wait for the individual to understand that they want to change. And so, I mean, you can help support them on the level that they're at. We talk about it like in terms of stages of change. Like, I would treat someone very differently who was maybe in the pre-contemplative stage of change versus someone who's in the action. So I think a lot of it is because I don't know if you're asking in terms of like someone who has a loved one who maybe they recognize needs help, but that person doesn't want to get help.
Yeah. We all think we have somebody in our life that is that, like, oh, they're so unconscious. If they just wake up, I'm going to be the one that wakes them up. But we're not. Like, that's my understanding too, is on the Giants journeys, we help people after they've awakened and they've determined, I want something more from my life. I know there's more, but they're stuck, right? They're stuck in old patterns and routines and behaviors. That's where we help them. But
Yeah.
I don't wake people up.
Well, I think that's a really hard skill to acquire. And really that's your own journey. And I think like for myself as a therapist, like that was a hard pill for me to swallow for a long time, was like, you can't force people to change. Like, I know that's my job, but I can only meet them where they're at. And then that's going to reduce a lot of the unnecessary suffering I could create for myself. Because we create this storyline on like why other people won't change, and it causes us suffering versus like, yeah, I mean, maybe I don't agree with their lifestyle or what they're doing, but like that's their journey and I have to accept that too.
Okay, so is all of our suffering our own? Like Byron Katie talks about that, not loving what is. And so is it a generated creation within us, a story, a narrative, a perception?
I don't think so, because I think innately there are things that are horrible, right? That happen to us. And
so let's talk the distinction between pain and suffering, right? Pain and events, those are going to happen. Like we've had people on the show who are amputees, people who've gone through some serious traumas, people who've experienced loved ones who've been murdered. You know, it's like, holy crap, I wouldn't want anybody to go through that.
Yeah.
But the thought process that follows, you know, like the suffering for me would be like the who you make yourself be in relation to that event. Does that make sense as a definition?
Yeah, it's kind of like the storyline attached to it. I think to a certain extent, again, I'm going to bring normalizing back into it. And if you guys don't mind, I'll actually share a brief story, a personal story. So have either of you heard of rhabdo before?
I don't think so.
No. And this is also an opportunity. It's not necessarily mental health related, but I do like to get the word out about this because I didn't know about this before I had it. But basically, I was put through a way too intense workout, and the proteins in my muscles broke down so much that it literally caused my arms to swell. Like I had like 12 pounds of swelling in my arms. I had to go to the hospital. You can die very quickly from it if it doesn't get caught because your kidneys basically shut down. So it was really a scary experience. And I was in the hospital for a week, this, that, and the fourth. But I bring this up because through that, it was so many learning lessons, right? I had to like physically and mentally like lean into the discomfort. Like just being in the hospital alone for a week is hard, but then like on top of it, all the physical discomforts and then the mental toll it took because I had so much anger at the trainer that had, you know, put me through this workout. And I was really like, even though, you know, I teach people every day to lean in discomfort, I was very avoidant of everything after the fact. Like I wanted to avoid like even talking to him, going anywhere that would remind me of him. Like I obviously couldn't work out. Like I was very avoidant, which is a behavior that fuels fear and discomfort. And I noticed I was having like these recurring nightmares of just like literally, and excuse me for saying this, but just like beating the crap out of him because I was so angry. And I was like, hold up, like, am I acting out of my values or am I acting out of my fears? Because right now I really value my mental health, but I fear going to approach this person and like letting him know how I feel and what had happened. And so it was no irony to me that that day I literally was like, I have to go. I just showed up at his studio, didn't know if he was going to be there. I talked to him and like aired all my grievances. And then that night I haven't had a nightmare since, right? And I think, again, I bring this all back to say, how you respond to the pain or the suffering is your way of responding. Like, could I have done it quicker or could I
like that.
More graceful? Like, sure. But like, that was my journey and I wasn't ready to say anything.
I like that because I have a friend who a loved one passed away and she showed up however she showed up, right? She didn't have any control over how she showed up. But after, she felt guilty and shameful about how she showed up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have a say in how your body responds. Some people freeze, some people run away, some people fight, right? Some people fawn. And so that we might not have control over, but what we make ourselves mean because of that we do. And sometimes we need some help to work through that because we're not able to process it fully, right? Like the processing we use is the processing of judgment and shame and guilt and minimalizing and stuff like that. Is that accurate for what you're sharing here?
Yeah, I think, to your point, how we show up is how we show up. And like, I could have probably made this into a way bigger deal if I then judged myself for how I showed up because it wasn't perfect and I'm a therapist and I should know how to do all this, right? It's like, no, like, and I'm a big fan of like the saying your pain is your pain, because I hear it all the time from my clients is like, things could be worse. And I cringe when people say that because yeah, of course they could be worse, but they could also be better. Right. And so like, it's not irrelevant. And it doesn't mean I want you to sit and stew in whatever it is that you're experiencing. But I think a big part of something essentially going away at some point is to know that it's there and to allow it to be there.
Yeah. Let's talk about allowance.
Money? Okay. Yeah. I would like at least $50 for doing the laundry.
I like where your mind goes. Yes, I would like that too.
Send them an invoice.
So we say the word acceptance, right? And to accept means to receive willingly. A lot of people have a hard time with the word acceptance. They also have a hard time with the word forgiveness, right? For some people, they hear the word forgiveness and they think, nah, somebody's getting off the hook.
Yeah.
Right. But if we look at it as acceptance, JP Morgan talks about allowance and accommodation, that when we give an allowance, it's got ticket to be there. Basically, it's like going to the movie and you got 2 hours to watch the movie and then get out. Don't move in. Don't put your, don't eat the food out of the refrigerator kind of a thing. And then accommodation is it gets to stay with you. But acceptance, going into the idea of acceptance, how do you define acceptance? And also, how do you define forgiveness? Like, what does that mean to you? And how do those help if they do?
Yeah, forgiveness is a big one that I always like to ask someone what for them does it mean to forgive? Because a lot of times people have a hard time forgiving if they have a misconstrued notion of what it means. Like for me, forgiveness means that you understand that something happened or that you experienced something. It does not necessarily mean that you loved it or you agree with it.
Right.
And so I think it's just coming to the reality. Again, it's the same as like with emotions. Like I have to accept that I am going to feel anxious. If I don't, then I'm going to be fighting up against that for forever. And I know it sounds cliche, but I'm sure everyone's heard like that saying where it's like, anger is like holding on to the poison or whatever and expecting the other person to get injured or whatever. And it's that, right? So
is anger a secondary emotion?
Yeah, I would say it's like the iceberg part of underneath the iceberg. So yeah, typically understanding like what is it that you're really feeling?
Yeah. So in grief, they talk about grief. Susan Anderson's work, the swirl method, shattering withdrawal, internalization.
Oh my God. You are making me feel like I need to go read like 20 books.
Me too, Nick.
I consume
my anxiety is through the roof right now.
Yeah, I eat books. Like I can't get enough.
You eat books?
But
like I eat donuts?
Yeah, kind of. That's my,
And I eat caffeine.
I can't listen to them slow. It drives me nuts when they're normal speed because it's like, hurry up, get to the point. Like I just want the point. And so, but the idea of the works like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross too, and her work around grief is anger is a natural part of grief. And usually if somebody's feeling anger, it's usually sadness or anxiety or fear underneath it, right? Is there something else that could be at play?
It could be any sort of emotion. I don't know that this is necessarily based on a study per se, but this is how I see it. I think the benefit of understanding what's underneath the anger is that you can now handle it in a much more effective way. So if I think I'm angry, I might think the way to get rid of that is to yell at someone, right? Which is not very productive. But if I understand that I actually feel sad, it's like, well, maybe I'll suggest to myself to go for a walk or call a friend, or, it just feels like it leads to more productive behaviors.
Yeah. I heard once that anger is a higher level emotion than apathy, and it'll actually move you from apathy to re-engagement. And so as a starter fluid, it's great, but as something you just keep running, it could be really damaging, right? It's like putting jet fuel in your car. It's like maybe for a second it's good, but
well, and a lot of times anger, I feel like not always, but can be like at someone. So you'll see it a lot of times with anxiety disorders, like a trait of it in the DSM is like irritability, and you'll see it. They'll be irritable with people in their lives. And it's not that the people in their lives are actually irritating them. It's that they feel like their mind is running a mile, like 5,000 miles a minute. And so if I can take a step back and say, well, it's not really that I'm angry. I said like, oh my God, like my poor self, like I've been like suffering, and like, how can I handle that in a more healthy way?
Yeah, I love this. This is like a conversation with my ADD. I'm like all over the. It's so good. Like,
I feel like I'm like attributing to it a little though. So.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Keep going. This is great.
The going back to the acceptance and the forgiveness, right, and the anger. What does it mean to accept then?
I think it means that you run towards whatever it is. So I think my example of like actually approaching the trainer, like that was me accepting that like this awful thing happened to me. And like, I'm really angry at that and sad, right? And all the other underneath emotions. Yeah. And then you let it still be there. You let it pop up. Like it still pops up pretty frequently for me, like that experience. But when it pops up, I'm not like, oh, this is popping in again. Or like, why is this here? So it's like, the best way I can describe it is it's like my life is going on, but there's this background song of like country music that I hate, right? They don't like country music, but I'm not like try to start. Oh, sorry. Well, now
but yeah, all right. That's the end of the show right now.
He beat me to the button. No,
just kidding. Yeah. Oh, look. Well, we got to go.
But I do love that analogy.
Garth Brooks just called he's ticked.
What?
Nothing. I just said Garth Brooks just called he's mad.
I probably lost a few. I went down a few notches for everyone probably, but I'm sorry.
You're good. Interrupting the thought chain here, like dropping people off the screen.
Well, do you remember where you were at?
We'll just go. Yeah, I've got.
Oh,
yeah.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, no, I remember. So it's, I think, a good analogy.
Keep her.
Something about country music. You lost me at country music.
Yeah, this should be like we should have her on every week.
I know. It's good.
Sorry.
I love it. Though. I love the knowledge, because you're talking from experience with clients who are really struggling with this, and this is powerful. And you work with a team who are doing this, but. Go back. I mean, going back to where we left off before I so rudely kicked you out.
All right, guys, stay with me. All right.
Yeah, we're here.
But you're asking about acceptance and like the memories that you have, or the thoughts, or the feelings, or the things that you don't like in your life is like the background music playing that you don't like. But you're not going to stop your day-to-day functioning to go try to change the music that you have no control over. I can't change that song.
I like that.
I think this is like the most pivotal thing I teach people, I think, and I teach myself every day, is that I cannot change the way I think or the way I feel. And I think that's a big misconception in the therapy field, is that change the way you think. No, I cannot change the way I think or feel. I can only change the way I respond to the way I think and feel.
Yeah. So the action, the activity, the behavior, right?
Exactly.
Hugh brought up resentment, right? The word resentment means to refeel. It comes from sentire, it's Latin, and it means to feel. And so when you're resenting things, you're just bringing up the emotion again. So you're feeling it again, right? Mm-hmm. And it's all right here. It has nothing to do with another person. It's all right here. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of the background music is I have thoughts. I have some pretty crazy thoughts going on in here. If people got to look in my head, they'd be like, oh shit, that's the guy that's teaching this stuff. That's messy, right?
Sometimes I hear them.
Yeah, sometimes you get to, I blurt
I hear
them out.
Nick's thoughts. I always hear my thoughts. Sometimes I get to hear Nick's too. It's awesome.
But the emotions too, is emotions always follow thought. And so emotions are just a byproduct of thought. Even if you're not conscious of it, they stem from a thought. And so it goes back to your behaviors, which create your habits, which create your value systems, which create your perceptions, right? And your perceptions tell you which thoughts to latch onto, and then that gives you the emotions, and it's this cycle. And so interrupting the behavior is the way to change the way of being, right? Because you might feel like crap, but go to the gym, like you said, right? Mm-hmm. You might not feel like doing the dishes, but doing the dishes creates the activity that your brain now knows, okay, we need to support that. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. I think of the Ghostbusters when they're like, don't think of anything. And he's like, I tried to think of the original most gentle, the most gentle, soft thing. It would never hurt us. And this is Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's coming to kill him. Thank God that we don't have thought
I never looked at a marshmallow the same.
reality, right? Could you imagine, like, if our thoughts went straight to reality, we'd be screwed, most of us.
Mm-hmm.
So the activity is what tells our brain this needs to be supported.
Yeah.
Or not supported. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I think with the idea of like, you feel depressed, for example, and like, let's get up and go to the gym or let's do the dish. It's not that when you're done, because I'll hear this all the time, like, well, I did go for the walk that you suggested, Madina, but I still felt like crap.
Yeah.
Yes. But you managed it better. So like, it's not that the walk or the workout miraculously is going to change the way you feel, because you're human and you're going to feel that way. It's that it helps manage it better versus laying on the couch and ruminating for the rest of the day.
Right. See, I feel every time we do a show, I get anxiety. I get bubble guts. I'm like, oh crap, how's this going to go? You know, but I've learned to manage it. Like, I just know that's part of this process. If I go speak on stage, same thing. I'm feeling all kinds of things in here.
Mm-hmm.
But I get up there and I lean on my practices and what I know. And when my mind calms down, it might take a minute. It's a little messy at the first, but as I calm down and I get my brain back, then everything just starts flowing again.
Mm-hmm.
Learning. Hey, you don't do that to me. We'll go to an ad now.
I was just checking to see where your anxiety level was at.
Yeah, holy crap, it just spiked. It spiked. I love it.
We should have like an anxiety meter, like we've like hooked up, you know, and it's
see if we can explode it. I love this stuff because this hits home for me. Like anxiety didn't just go away, but my ability to manage the anxiety and live with it and feel comfortable changed. That's what transformed, is my ability to tolerate it, to have tolerance for it.
Because you keep doing the thing that's scary, right? You keep getting on the podcast, even though it's like, oh, maybe your heart's racing and you get the bubble guts, right? It's like, still getting on.
Yeah. And I'm going to do it anyway, even though I feel that.
Yeah.
You know, there's like the fitness journey in the last, few months here, I dropped 30 pounds. Congrats. And it didn't come from wanting to. Yeah. It didn't come from motivation. I'll tell you that.
Ice cream still played a part.
Oh, man.
He wanted ice cream badly.
Fewer beers here and there, but the idea was that it was the discipline. It was the re-engaging with my life in a way that was helpful, even when I wanted to just sit and eat ice cream. Some people say bonbons, but that's like a 90s reference, right? It's right there with country music.
You're about to get removed again.
Yeah. So let's talk about, man, we've already gone quite a bit here. It's 47 minutes in. You good? You want to keep going? Are you done? Yeah.
I'm done.
I'm done.
Ryan, are you good? You want to keep going?
Hold on. I just need some more of this. Yeah, we're good.
I want to talk about the importance of vision. There's a theory called hope theory that says that when you have a vision, it creates hope in you. People will say, I'm excited about my future. And then not only can they see a brighter future, but they know they're the ones that can create it. So they take in an internal locus of control, also identity, internal locus of identity. They know who they are and they know that they're the ones that can create that. And then when it comes to obstacles, hope theory says that they'll turn obstacles into stepping stones. And so, but without a clear, let's say, quote unquote, vision or an idea of I can create a better future, then it's hard to feel hope in your life. And a lot of people lose hope because they don't know what their purpose is and they think they've got to go find it. And I want to play with this a little bit. Is what do you see as vision? What do you see as purpose? And let's maybe go down that path a little bit. And how important is that?
I think when you talk about the first thing, and it's not vision that comes to mind, is when we look at successful people, they are people that break things down into small, manageable tasks and people that are encouraging to themselves. So a big thing that I work with people is like, you got to stop be so self-denigrating, right? And so I think what I'm hearing from like that, what you're citing right now is like the person, yes, they have this vision, but it sounds like they're trusting that they can do the steps that will take them there. And they're chunking up the steps and they're being encouraging. Like when they have this obstacle, they're like, hey, this is just a stepping stone.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I can do this. I mean, I do that every day. I get up in the morning, just like everybody else. Okay, so maybe I don't. I make my bed first thing. Like I get up and I jump out of bed and I make my bed first thing. And, it's from that Navy commander who taught, on the importance of making a bed. It's like the single dish, right? I'll wash one dish. I'll make my bed.
Yeah.
But getting into that routine, it's like, it gives me some sort of a ritual and routine to start my day that I created. I didn't wake up reacting to my day. I started my day and I decided this is what I'm going to do today. Right? There's no emotion. And if I go to reaction mode, I'm waiting to be motivated to make my bed. When I feel it, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
And we talk about purpose. Purpose for us, the word comes from pose, which means pausar, which is to pause or rest. And so purpose is really a place to rest, like a rest stop. And so it's like I'll put in energy and then I'll rest. So my purpose is I won't stop my energy until I get to this point. It's like going to the gas station 200 miles from here. I'll stop at that point and then I'll get back on the road. But a purpose is never a place to land. It's a place to pause. And so thinking about the creation, like you said, breaking it down into encouragement and simple steps, that's purpose right there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that, because I think even like, if I were to be 100% transparent on here, like I couldn't tell you what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I find that depressing. I think it's because I am taking things at such a like small rate. Like, what can I do today? Like, and the whole like bed making thing, that's like a huge thing to help get kind of like the engine running, is to do those small manageable tasks. So I hear what you're saying with like, okay, it's good to have like hope and like have something to look forward to. But I could also see that being very sticky, because people are then like, oh my God, like I don't know what my purpose is. And like everyone else knows what their purpose is. And like, how am I supposed to know? And it's like, but maybe it's not that complex. And maybe we can even normalize that. Like, yeah, I don't even know why I'm here. And like, that doesn't have to be bad per se. I think like when I think of purpose, I'm not necessarily like stuck in like what I want it to be. And not saying that if you do have a vision that's bad. I'm just saying like it could also be, if you don't necessarily have a vision, that doesn't have to be a bad thing either.
Yeah. The reality is, I mean, if we look at reality, a lot of us will look at our reality, but we don't want to face it and see like, this is what I've created for my life. Like, this is my life. This is who I am within my life. It can get really depressing because we have dreams and delusions and ideals about what our life should be. Yeah. And I think happiness stems from, a lot of research shows that happiness comes from our delusion and our ability to see beyond what is. That's how I would define a delusion, is to see beyond what currently is. And so hope would be simply that I believe that my actions are going to create what I think I can create. And the little steps are that I think these steps are important, and I encourage myself to do those because I think one day it'll pay off.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Trust, I love that word. It means a confident expectation.
I gotta brag. I'm like, how many books can I read in the next week or so?
But I research, like I look at the etymology of words and the current definition of words. And it's like the way that we use them. A lot of us just use the words, but we don't slow down to really hear what we're saying when we say what we say. And so, the trusting ourselves, that a confident expectation that my efforts are going to pay off. Every one of us has the ability to create that. To play with the idea of belief is, the Germanic to hold dear is like, we hold it dear because it's important to us.
Yeah.
And we don't yet know. We just think, this is going to pay off and I believe it's going to happen, but we don't yet have the knowledge and the reality of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think too, it's trusting that even if that end goal doesn't wind up happening, because we could get really attached to that doesn't necessarily mean that wasn't the trajectory that you were like planning. Like I would have never envisioned that this is what I would be doing like a couple years ago, even while I was still a therapist. Like I would have never envisioned this is what I'm doing, but I'm doing it, and like who knows how much longer I'll do it. But I think just like in a way, like meeting yourself with where you're at, but yes, getting up and doing those like steps every day to get you to hopefully some sort of end. I don't even want to say end goal, but goal.
Yeah. You know what I like about that? I had this thought as you were talking, is a lot of times we'll take vision and we'll place it somewhere down the track, so far down that it's like something to try to keep attaining. I just had this like, and I don't know that this is the case for everything. It just, you said, hey, I don't know if I have a vision. What if you're living your vision currently by how
Right.
you're being? So your vision is just, I don't know. I just had this thought of like, I don't know, just some all the time pushing it out there.
Yeah.
But for you, it's you're living your vision and creating your reality based on what brings you fulfillment, which
Yeah.
is this type of work.
Yeah.
And so it's the here now. It's happening right now for you.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I love that. I love that you said that too, because I just feel like I don't think that that's not great that people have that. I just like, I've never, like, I've had people ask me, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, I couldn't tell you. And I think people assume that that sounds like depressing, or I don't have a trajectory, or I'm not like working towards something. But I just feel like it puts a lot of like unnecessary pressure on me. And I'm trusting that every day I'm going to wake up and do something that hopefully gets me to a place where I want to be day by day. But I don't necessarily need to plan and prepare for that. Um,
I,
and yeah,
I
again, I hope this isn't coming off like if you have a vision,
no, this is
bad.
No,
beautiful
no.
because
It just gives you a different view of it. That's it.
yeah, like Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge, right?
Mm,
And so if vision is nothing more than your ability to imagine something different, if that's all it is, I imagine this thing, but not only imagine it, but believe that you can create it, right? Then you'll take action and discipline to create it. Because if you don't believe you can do it and you don't have hope in that, you're not going to take any activity around it or have any activity.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to have like that idea, so then you can take like those steps versus like feeling like hopeless or like what's
Yeah.
the point. Yeah, I think that's really important.
And so the idea, so we started with yoga and we'll probably wrap up with yoga and maybe donuts, right? Is the idea of
There's treats.
stretching. You know, the intention, the stretching towards something, that you do it in micro steps, you stretch in little incremental steps. That's what I prefer to do. I don't love to dive into things without a net. You know, truthfully, that's a little scary for me. I like to do incremental steps toward whatever it is I think I can create. And I have no idea, like you say, I don't know what the future holds. All I know is who I am within what I'm doing. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're giving people that space to really just start loving on this. Like, you're better than you think you are. You're more okay than you think you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have something else?
I don't know. I feel like now I'm feeling like so many diamonds have been dropped, like with the comment of like, maybe there is no vision and like, this is what we're living. Cause again, it's like, yes, to have that like relative idea of like where you would ideally like to be. But then it's like, then we're forgetting what's currently going on. Like, how many times have we accomplished something and like, we didn't even really acknowledge that, and we are on to the next thing. And it's like, wait, like, hold up. Like, literally years ago, I would have never dreamed that my life were here, because I was working in a community mental health facility, really sick patients, wasn't making like any money. And like, I would have never said like, oh, I want to be a director of operations and do podcasts and like help people with this knowledge. But like, here it is. And I think like, that's like a cool thing that I could have missed out on if I was like at that time trying to plan for this, you know?
Yeah. If your life has to be something and it's not, you could really do some damage to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you eat all those donuts at once too.
Yeah. There's something about that stress and donuts. The combination is not very good for your body. I think this is a beautiful conversation, because it really it creates room for our emotions. It creates room for the discomfort. It creates room for running toward the discomfort, not running away from it. Mm-hmm. It creates tools for doing that, right? Mm-hmm. It redefines what we use so frequently as, oh, you got to have your purpose. You got to go find your purpose and your vision and all this stuff. And you truly don't. What you need to be is who you are, but determine who you want to be, because it's not like you're tied to whatever was. It's like you get to create yourself. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the power is. And even somebody with like OCD, if you go back to, you're having the thoughts and you're having the emotions, well, that doesn't matter as much as the activity. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't mind, just one other thing that like, as you're talking, it reminds me of is, I think the thing, and again, this might just be the anxiety therapist in me. When I think of that vision, it's like overwhelming for so many people, especially take someone who's already prone to depression, anxiety, and then you say, create this vision. And it's like, holy crap, like that's super overwhelming. And then that stalls people from actually taking the steps to make that vision. So like the vision is great, but can you also make like smaller visions? Like what's my vision for today?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Micro visions, right? Yeah. Microvision, is that like a tool?
At that time right now, Nick, we're in Sum Gigante 7 in my group. We're on vision, like we just did visions. We're talking about that specific journey. What's interesting is I asked them to go talk about, like, to sit. I actually said the words ruminate. Go ruminate. Think about your you're right. Yeah. Think about your vision. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna talk to them about microvision and like where you're at currently.
Yeah.
And more in a state of being on the level of capacity that you can handle currently. And as you keep stepping, that your ability is going to increase as you can reinforce those behaviors that serve and manage and control the ones that don't. And so this has been, it was like it was tailor-made for my group and for me, for my perspective. So sorry for interrupting, Nick. I just had to
share that. I didn't even see it as an interruption. I loved it. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was good.
I know. I feel like we're dropping diamonds this morning.
I know. Should we keep going for a minute? Are you okay on time?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. There's so much that we try and squeeze into an hour, and it's really hard because there's so much that all of us have learned, as we've traveled. But I think the greatest gift that you're offering here is room, space, grace, we're all going to do it in our own way, but the more room you can create for yourself, like that's where shame comes in, is there's no room for you to make a mistake. Depression comes in because you feel like you need to measure up to something, or anxiety is like you need to measure up to what others think you need to do. And so creating room for that is, you might have those thoughts and you might have those emotions that come up, but just let them be passengers on the bus. That's what we say. And that's taken from some other therapist out there that, we're the drivers of the bus and the emotions they have a ticket to be there. We can't kick them off the bus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, when you say that, what I'm thinking of, and now I'm blanking what I was going to say.
Yeah. Perfect. Wait, she's human? Yeah, I love it.
Crap, I knew I should have said I go back for a minute.
Yeah,
I want to remember. I'm going to remember tonight at like 2 a.m. when I can't sleep, probably. I'll be like emailing you. Wait, I remember what I was going to say.
After the show, people are like, well, what is she even talking about? They're like, huh?
It had to do something with self-compassion. Oh, yes. I think if I were from a therapist lens, if I could like prove something to each individual on this planet, was that we are way more similar than we would even be able to fathom. And I think I see it every day when I'm going from session to session and I'm like, I just want you to talk to this person because you're saying the exact same thing. And like, you look at the research from Kristen Neff, she does a lot on like self-compassion, is one of the ways to be compassionate to yourself is to recognize we all suffer in a very similar way. It might just be like different degrees and flavors, but what really, increases suffering is that isolation that we have. And it goes back to normalizing our emotions, right? Anxiety is something that literally everyone experiences. Like when people are like, oh, you feel anxious? I'm like, yes, what? Yes, I feel anxious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what's interesting is I'm more of an introvert, as far as behaviors go. I have these introverted tendencies. And so for me, I recharge when I'm alone. Mm-hmm. And like Ryan's the complete opposite of that. This dude is like, I got to be around people. I'm like, that exhausts me.
Yeah.
But that connection is still needed. Like when people are isolated, they shut down.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, right?
Well, think of it like not even like isolation in like a physical sense, but like more of the conceptualizing how connected I feel. That. So like, and I can't remember what study this was.
Feeling alone, right? Like you're the only one kind of a concept. Is that right?
Like I could have a lot of friends, but I don't feel connected to them, or maybe I don't
Right.
recognize that they suffer in a similar way. And vice versa, I can have 2 really good friends and feel super connected and fulfilled because of the
Right.
relationship I have with them in the world. But I just read or heard something about the number one predictor of a long life is how many positive social interactions you have. And this does not mean how many friends you have. It means how do you interact with the barista or the person at the grocery store or the person that cut you off in traffic, right?
Yeah.
So how many of those interactions do you have?
Traffic takes life out of me. I'm going to be honest. Like,
It's gonna have to reframe on the
but
freeway.
the barista, like, yeah, I could have a great conversation.
Well, that could be your micro vision.
Yeah.
Nick will have to be, you just have pretend dialogue with them, but then
Right.
just change it from angry and middle finger to
That would be my
waving and
practice.
asking how their day went.
Be giant. What the hell is that? Guy just brake checked me. Yeah.
He's got a big, he says like he's got a big sticker on the back.
I know. It's like, you can't miss me. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Not good. Traffic's not good for
Be
me
giant.
right
He's
now.
like,
But I'll practice. I love it. You know, as we wrap up here, the importance of a legacy, like a gift of will, you know, something that you leave with the world. We like the idea of Steve Chandler, the living legacy, that leave it now. Why wait till you're dead? You know, it's too late then. And so what is a legacy to you? Why are you doing what you do?
Oh gosh. Woo. I truly love the idea of leaning into discomfort. I've seen it work really well in my own life, and I love being able to teach other people the skill.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So that's cool. Ryan, do you have other thoughts?
You know, I just, you know, I joke a lot, and you know, we had a great time joking around, and it was good. There can be lightheartedness to heavy topics.
Yeah.
And if we don't take it like ourselves so dang seriously all the time, we can kind of just move through that. He removes me. Nope. See, that doesn't even hurt my anxiety. It makes me laugh, and it makes me love this even more. Like, I love what I do because I can do it my way, and I can also learn from other people's ways of being.
Yeah.
I get the opportunity week after week. I'd say this all the time, to sit in front of amazing giants with different perspectives, and I can see. I might not agree with every single thing that they say, but I can listen and learn, and I can stretch, and I can see things in a different way, so that I can then go help those people that might learn differently than me, with the knowledge that I've gained, to help them grow. I get to see Nick every single week, so I don't learn a damn thing from him. But no, just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know what's amazing about Nick?
I didn't feel that way about you. Jeez.
Yeah, no,
make you feel bad, right? Like,
here's the interesting thing.
Counseling.
We are like,
right?
Yeah, him and I, we give each other crap all the time, and that's just, it's kind of, I think it's part of our love language, really. But I sit here with Nick, and I have the opportunity to work with him day to day. He's probably just freaking sick of me at this point, which is, you know, probably true, but it never ceases to amaze me. He continually is working on himself. It's always on his mind to grow, to stretch, to go into that discomfort, and he's passionate about it. And he'll come in and he'll talk about his discomfort, what he's doing, what he's discovering, what he's figuring out. And every time he does that, it's just up level, up level, up level. And his capacity is increased to the point where he can pop into a room and have this conversation with anybody, and then also get down on the level of a person that's just starting to wake up and wants something different, but doesn't know how to get there, and help them incrementally move forward. And I know that that's what you're doing too. You have those abilities, and I can see it in you. I'm so grateful for the time that we've been able to spend, and I can't wait to spend more time together. Hopefully you'll come back, and we can find ways that we can serve each other, and we're more than
Madina, come back.
Yeah, come back.
Okay. I would say, I can feel a little discomfort and say, I don't know, maybe.
Just like,
right.
The uncertainty.
Right. Just leave it hanging. I love it. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I had a really hard time, Ryan, when you were talking, to not say Ryan's really trying to get that positive social interaction and
It's true.
that
It is. I need to live longer.
Yeah.
he's
I have
like
a lot of
going up
things I
to
wanna
random
get done.
people today.
Yeah.
Is that don't they call it brownie points? Getting those brownie points in. Yeah. I love it, dude. That's cool. You know, what a great topic. I think it's a great topic. It's a needed topic. And anybody that's human is going to feel the range of emotions. And so this is something that we get to carry with us. Like if you don't feel anymore, then you're probably not with us anymore. And that's a problem. Right. And so this is how to manage those emotions. Yeah, we need to ship a box of donuts out or something out to Medina. To those that are watching, we love you. Thank you so much for your comments. That kind of makes the show. Being able to read the comments and then just say something about them is fun. And Medina, thank you for your time today, for teaching us your knowledge. Yeah, it was good. Like we'll do it again. We do these expert panels, so we'll get you an invite for that, so you can come in and join us there. But man, like Ryan said, we've had probably 200 plus interactions like this on our show, and it's just amazing. Everybody has something to teach, and it's just like, I love the word fractal. It's a fractal of the whole. There's just a facet that we never thought of before. And so thank you for what you brought.
You too, guys. Love talking this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. Everybody that's watching, remember, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. This is what you got to work with. So from here, launch into your giantness. We love you. Thanks for being a part of our show, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Love you too.